Rolex Paris Masters. It is Monday. That is tomorrow, 5 a.m. Eastern, right here on Tennis Channel. We've got all the action with Rafael Nadal leading a stacked field for the second consecutive week on the ATP Tour. So make sure you tune in because that's going to be a lot of fun. And let's look back to a year ago where Novak Djokovic faced Denis Shapovalov in the final and would eventually, in straight sets, 6-3, 6-4, claim his fifth title in Paris. A tremendous career, obviously, as we know, for the world number one and one of the greatest of all time, but he has really feasted at that tournament in particular. And we won't see him this year as a result because he can't gain any more points. By the way, no Eagle, Paul Anico, and Jimmy Arias. I feel like I should probably reintroduce everybody.
Well done.
The Glasses gang here on TC right. Live. Yes, well I did. And I didn't get the memo. If you missed it, I didn't get the memo on the gray. So I'm still kind of working in my head about how I can get past that. So we're going to just keep going. Anyway, Novak Djokovic won't be there this year because he can't gain any more points. And he said that he's trying to maximize how many points that he actually can gain. But this being the third and final Masters 1000 of the year, usually there are 9, Rafael Nadal will be there. And Rafael Nadal, the last time we saw him, was absolutely dominant. Here's what we can look forward to, really, for the entire tournament. Rafa Nadal's 1 win away from number 1,000 in his career. Could match Novak Djokovic as well in terms of Masters 1000 titles. Paul, what stands out on this list in particular to you?
Take your pick. I mean, it's just been an amazing career for him. How about 36 Masters 1000 titles? That is absolutely incredible. The one good piece of news for the other mere mortals in the draw, Rafa Nadal doesn't love indoors. Doesn't work for him as well, doesn't get as much action on the court. And the players know that, but they also know he's Rafa Nadal, so he's not giving you anything. So that one little tidbit of hope that it's indoors really helps the field.
It seems like the other thing for him is Paris. He doesn't like indoors, but at Paris, at least he does reasonably well, whether it's
yes.
So he does well on the clay, obviously, and I remember thinking he might lose to Djokovic in the finals this year. How wrong was I when I saw how that match went? And the Paris indoors, it's still Paris, so he's going to play better than he normally does indoors, most likely, and he's going to want to win this title.
And Diego Schwartzman vying for that final spot over in London as well, and he'll have a chance to try to lock that thing up. We saw Andrei Rublev lock up his chance and his opportunity in London. So let's look at the draw because Rafa Nadal is going to be right at the top, but there are a couple names, Jimmy, that stand out here. To me, Pablo Carreño Busta, who didn't have a great week, but he has had a fantastic 2020, and he's got another chance to continue his tour forward. And Hugo Gaston, who was the surprise of the French Open, surprise at Roland Garros, that's a great first-round matchup.
Is Gaston going to be able to drop shot indoors 50 times? I'm not sure that that's going to work quite as well for him. Carreño Busta, you're right, has played really well this year. It surprises me that he's nowhere near that list of making the finals because he's played so well. Good section of the draw for Nadal. Actually, first round match will be fairly difficult.
To me, that's his toughest match. I mean, they're all very good players, but you look just at style matchups. That's the best match for Nadal. It's going to be the toughest one in the second round. But when we go down and look, the draw doesn't really get any easier. There's some real interesting ones. I'm very excited to see how Millman responds after the first win today, playing Kecmanovic first round. And Dan Evans and Wawrinka have had a few battles. Evans has had match points a couple times and lost to him. Gilles Simon, we'll see how Tommy Paul responds after having match points last week. So a lot of good ones in this part.
Tommy Paul will be there. Grigor Dimitrov will not. He is pulled out of the Rolex Paris Masters. And Andrei Rublev, of course, now with 7 career titles. There's Diego Schwartzman, a potential second-round matchup with either Richard Gasquet or Taylor Fritz. Neither will be easy for the 5'7" Diego Schwartzman. And Daniil Medvedev, who Jimmy has struggled through 2020 after really becoming a world beater, so to speak, in 2019.
Wow, it's been difficult for Medvedev because once the tour went to clay, he can't seem to win a match on clay, and he's not as good, obviously, indoors as he is on the U.S. hard court. He's got possibly Kevin Anderson, if he's healthy, who beat him just a few days ago. So that's a difficult start for him. I'm going to let Paul talk a little bit about Schwartzman because his boy Fritz might be the guy playing it. So you might as well talk about that.
Yeah, they've had a couple battles. Taylor's got a tough first round against Gasquet, so Schwartzman's going to have to play well regardless. And I think we got one more section left in this draw to see who's waving the magic wand down there. And look, Tsitsipas has a bye. He's going to play young Christian Ruud or Humbert in the first round. That's kind of a tough matchup, but Tsitsipas on the indoor courts is really brutal to play. I am really excited about Auger-Aliassime against Cilic. That should be a lot of fun. And we'll see how American Tennis Sandgren does against Hugues Herbert in the first round. But I think there's some gaps in here. And look, if you look at the history of the Paris indoors, we've had some strange finalists and some strange winners. And so for me, with no Novak, with no Roger, I think there's an opportunity. And like Jimmy said, if I'm Nadal, I'm thinking this is a really nice time for me to make a statement too. We know how great of a competitor Rafa is. We know he loves playing in Paris. This is a different part of Paris on a different surface. But he gives you so much. I think he's going to be very hungry coming into this tournament.
And again, the two names to look out for, Diego Schwartzman, Matteo Berrettini. Those are the two right below the spots that have clinched right now for London. They have their opportunity to do that.
Berrettini was in that section of the draw at the very bottom where all the hard court, fast court players are. He actually had the sort of the tougher section with Raonic. Not his first match, but beyond that, he's going to have a little bit of trouble moving on, you would think. And can Nadal still make number one? I know he say he can't, but if he wins this, can he go play Sofia? And
he could. It
would be tremendous because I don't like the way Djokovic competed once he got to the quarterfinals and thought that he had clinched number one. So if Rafa hears me and you win Paris, go ahead.
So, to give you the entire lowdown, he'd have to win Paris, he'd have to win Sofia, and he'd have to win in London at the end of the year. Possible.
No big deal.
Yeah, no. It's Rafael Nadal.
There's a chance.
So I'm saying there's a chance. To quote the great philosopher Lloyd Christmas. Let's go to the social net. England in lockdown, or at least heading towards lockdown, but the ATP Tour did release this. The ATP Finals, Jimmy, this was a really, really good thing to see. Going to go on as planned.
What's happened, I think, is that people have realized that tennis tournaments can be played in a certain way, in a bubble, keep the players all together at a hotel in the courts, and it seems to have worked so far, and nice to see that England's going to probably let us continue the tour moving along.
So the real question is who claims that final spot? Make sure you tune in this week to find out if Schwartzman or Berrettini can inch closer as we move on to Jaden Agassi. That's right, Jaden Agassi. We saw Andre Agassi and Steffi Graf in their Halloween costumes yesterday. Here is their son Jaden getting ready, Paul, for his freshman season playing baseball at USC.
I've never had the good fortune of seeing Jaden play, but I'll tell you what, if he can get Pop's hand-eye coordination and Mom's movement ability, he's doing pretty darn well. I hear he's a phenomenal prospect and hope he has a great career at USC. It's going to be, I think it's a challenging time for all kids in college.
The interesting thing for me, sorry for Agassi,
no, please.
Andre Agassi, when he would warm up his serve, would start immediately at about 115 miles an hour in the first serve. And somehow, Jaden's a pitcher, so I'm sure he doesn't have to warm up. He doesn't have these 90-mile-an-hour fastballs right out of the gate.
That'd be fantastic. You know what? I'm going to have to keep my eye on that because I think that's an excellent point. If he just steps on the mound and first pitch he throws 102,
you'll see it.
That's what we know. Let's move on to Roger Federer, who has not played tennis since February until now. Master of social distancing, by the way. We know Roger's very responsible, Paul, and he's doing exactly that, taking the pics with the kids as well.
This is great. Roger's been back on the court practicing in Switzerland, and he tends to have a couple fans around now and again. You see a little distance with no mask and then closer together with the mask. So always trying to give back to the game, and pretty congenial guy, makes a little fan happy there.
It's remarkable to me how well he was still playing. He has continued to play. He's had some injuries over the years. Paul, you know him a lot better than I do. Can he keep this up for another year or two or three?
I never bet against great because they're the exception, not the rule. But I've got to say, at this point in Roger's career, the older you get, in my opinion, the harder it is to have big chunks of time and then start playing again, particularly if you have an injury. That being said, I know he's being incredibly diligent. Pierre Paganini is the best in the business about training, knows Roger so well. He's got great doctors and physios in his corner. And Severin Luthi knows Roger better than anyone. So between Severin and Luby and the rest of the team, Roger knows what he needs to do. But like I said, the older you get, the harder it is with those big chunks of time.
What's been shocking to me is how well he continues to move. I almost don't notice a difference at his age. In his game, you think of him as a guy that's always in position and he doesn't have to move, but that's because he moves so well, sort of in between shots. Have you seen any slowdown in him?
A little different kind of moving. When he was younger, I thought he defended better when he was deep in the court. Now he very rarely gets deep in the court. And like you said, Jimmy, he's the master of controlling the tempo of the rally on the baseline. He is like a hockey goalie. He can do stick saving and beauty and get an offense very, very early. And his game is so offensive, he doesn't have to defend. I think the defensive mobility with everybody is tougher to sustain. Offensive, proactive movement is easier because it's up to you. And when you're as gifted as that man like there, it's like watching Baryshnikov out there. You know, he's amazing with it. But I think it's going to be something that I really hope he gets healthy quickly, and I hope we see him down in Australia.
Well, we all talked about Kevin Anderson yesterday, and I'm curious on both your opinions because we said Anderson actually ended up getting his surgery before the tour got shut down, and it ended up just being great timing because he didn't necessarily miss much more tennis than anybody else. For Roger, obviously he doesn't play the rest of this year, so he misses the final few months of the tour, but is his timing good enough that at least he can work himself back in and he's not too far off?
Well, that's why I've been talking about age a little bit, because at some point you start healing a little more slowly as you get older. I promise you. At least normal people do, and Roger doesn't. But I think he's had enough time. I think if he goes to play, he'll be ready to play.
Well, he won't play if he's not ready.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you that, and that's what he's trying to get through right now. But remember, it's been since the Australian Open. So that's one of those long periods of time, and he had the initial issue after Australia, and then he's had it corrected again. So we'll see. They're on the court. He's working at it, and I think the game is better when he's out there, so let's hope he gets healthy quickly.
Not a question about it, and we are happy to see Roger Federer back on the court.